Hello everyone and welcome to my channel YNR Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Sharon Newman had always felt at ease in the cozy, well-known hum of crimson lights, the scent of freshly made coffee, the quiet conversation of the residents, the ringing of the doorbell as patrons arrived and departed. But when Sienna Lawson revealed the truth she had never anticipated hearing, that serene comfort was abruptly broken. It began like any other day, but it would turn out to be the day that everything changed and Sharon's neatly regulated life fell apart. She was enjoying a calm shift behind the counter on what should have been a typical afternoon when the unexpected woman entered. Although she wasn't precisely a stranger, Sharon never imagined that she would see Sienna again. Her eyes were not as serene as they usually were when she walked into the coffee shop. They were filled with tension, fire, and the burden of a secret she was at last prepared to share. Sharon knew right away that something wasn't right. She sensed it from the way Sienna's hand shook as she walked up to the counter and from the pause in her voice when she said, "Sharon, we need to talk." Sharon felt her gut knot at the words. She set the coffee cup she'd been holding on the counter and took a calm, steadying breath. She had experienced her share of grief, deceit, and secrets throughout the years. She had become adept at seeing impending major events. But this was the kind of bombshell that would send her reeling, and she couldn't have prepared herself for it. With a calm yet circumspect tone, she queried hesitantly, "What's going on, Sienna?" After Sienna looked around anxiously, Sharon ushered her into a quiet corner booth after noticing how serious the situation was. 1,000 conversations had taken place in that booth, including confrontations, betrayals, and love confessions, but nothing like what was about to happen. Slowly, Sienna took a seat, holding on to her purse as if it were the only thing keeping her rooted. She glanced at the window and then back at Sharon. "This isn't easy," she said in a weak voice. "This has been with me for a while. Actually, 10 years. Sharon scowled. 10 years? She repeated, still not getting it. "What are you talking about, Sienna?" As though bracing herself for impact, Sienna took a sharp breath. At last, she added, "I have to tell you something about Nick." Sharon's heart stopped a little as she heard Nick Newman's name. No matter how many years or heartbreaks passed between them, she had always felt a connection to Nick, who was in some ways both her past and present. "How about Nick?" Sharon inquired, her tone becoming more circumspect. Now Sienna's hands were trembling. Despite her obvious fear, Sharon could tell by the look in her eyes that this was no game or falsehood. This actually happened. After taking a deep breath, Sienna muttered, "I have a daughter." For a moment, Sharon was surprised and blinked. It was not what she had anticipated. However, that wasn't the only thing that made her heart skip a beat. That was the next step. Even though Sienna's following words were barely audible, they had the impact of a detonating bomb. "She's Nick's daughter, Sharon, and she's 10 years old." Sharon was momentarily out of breath. She felt as though the world was tilting and her entire body turned cold. Her head unable to process the shock, she gasped, What did you just say?" As she nodded, tears welled up in Sienna's eyes. "This is not how I intended to express it. I didn't want to ruin his life, therefore I've kept it a secret for so long. But I can't hide it any longer. He is entitled to know. You have a right to know." Disbelief, rage, confusion, and sadness were among the 1,000 feelings that suddenly swept through Sharon, causing her hands to clench on the edge of the table. Her voice was shaking, but it was getting sharper as she asked, "You're telling me Nick has a 10-year-old daughter that no one knew about?" With her own shame spilling out, Sienna nodded once more. "Indeed," she whispered. "Her name is Emma. She is intelligent, compassionate, and quite similar to him, Sharon. I witness it daily." Sharon retreated a little, her thoughts racing. Emma, a girl of 10 years old, Nick's daughter. How is this possible? How could Nick have a child that he was unaware of, or worse, that he might have been aware of but had kept it a secret from her? As Sharon struggled to make sense of 10 years of her life, she suddenly realized there was a chapter she was unaware of. Not even knowing which aspect of the story she was disputing, she whispered, "How? How could Sienna have concealed this? What prevented Nick from knowing? Why did everything she believed to be true about their past now seem to be false?" As Sienna started to explain, her voice broke. "Nick and I, that was so long ago. Prior to everything changing. We were together. It was intended to have no significance. Then I discovered I was expecting a child. Sharon, I didn't tell him. Despite my fear, I believed I was acting appropriately. Before anyone knew, I fled Genoa City. I created a life for Emma that was separate from everything, including the Newmans. As Sharon listened, her heart raced in her ears. The weight of each word increased. 10 years. 10 years of a potentially devastating secret. But why now? With a harsher voice now, driven by the agony of betrayal, Sharon asked, "Why now tell me this? Why didn't you tell Nick years earlier?" Sienna drew a breathless gasp. Because Emma began to inquire. She's curious about her father. She is worthy of getting to know him. And to be honest, Sharon, I can't lie any longer. No one is treated fairly now. Painfully, Sharon's heart twisted. She had already experienced treachery from Nick and other individuals in her life, so she wasn't naive. She had been blindsided, deceived, and cheated on. This, however, felt different. This has nothing to do with adultery. This concerned a youngster, a part of Nick's life that she was unaware of. A child with the power to alter everything. Her past with Nick flashed across her head. The years they spent together. Their pain. Their household. Even when they weren't together, the connection they had always had. She now understood that the link was not what she had assumed it to be. The puzzle had an additional piece. Someone else. Is Nick aware? At last, Sharon asked, her voice shaking with something terrible beneath it but subdued. Sienna gave a headshake. No, not quite yet. I will inform him. However, I felt you ought to be aware as well, because I know how close you two are. I am aware of his significance to you. Those comments caused Sharon's chest to constrict. She couldn't deny the truth in them, but she didn't like the thought of Sienna assuming things about her relationship with Nick. Even as everything else in her life broke apart, Nick remained a constant. Once she loved him. Perhaps she always would in her heart. The idea of him having a kid who is 10 years old with someone else and becoming a parent once more without her knowledge tore something deep inside of her. Now, Sienna's hands were holding onto the table's edge. I apologize, Sharon. I am aware that this is shocking. I am aware that you have every reason to be angry. However, you and I are no longer the focus of this. Emma is the subject of this. The truth is due to her. Nick is entitled to know. Sharon's chair scraped the floor as she jerked to her feet. Her breathing was rapid and erratic. You don't understand it, she yelled, her voice brimming with panic. Sienna, this isn't simply some secret you can forget and move on from. It's Nick. This is his life. My life. Our household. You can't just show up 10 years later and say, hey, you have a daughter, by the way. Despite flinching at Sharon's remarks, Sienna remained firm. I understand. I am aware of its complexity and disarray. However, it is the reality. Sharon paced with her palms against her temples as she turned away. She felt as though she was unable to catch a single thought since her mind was moving so quickly. A daughter who is 10 years old. How would Nick react? He would be caught off guard, hurt, and possibly even enraged. However, she knew he would stand up because she knew him well. Nick was that person. And the idea that he would defend Sienna's daughter sent a shockwave of unanticipated anguish and envy through her. Although she detested the sensation, she was powerless to stop it. She spun back toward Sienna, her voice shaking. Where is she? Where is Emma? Surprised by the question, Sienna blinked. She whispered, she's here. In the city of Genoa. The reason I brought her was she should meet him, I hope. She should know her father, in my opinion. Sharon felt her heart sink to her gut. Emma was present. She was a living, breathing child who was unaware of the tempest her existence was about to unleash. She was more than simply a notion or a secret. Neither woman said anything for a long time. As she tried to take it all in, Sharon gazed at Sienna. Sienna was aware that she wasn't solely responsible for the treachery. However, that didn't make accepting it any simpler. Nick had a daughter who is 10 years old. The universe Sharon believed to be hers was completely altered by that fact alone. When will you let him know? At last, Sharon asked in a low, steady voice. Tonight, said Sienna. He and I are going to meet at society. That's where I was going to tell him. I couldn't keep it from you, though. That was how much I owed you. Sharon shook her head and laughed bitterly. Sienna, you owe me nothing. But you're going to ruin his life. Sienna's gaze grew softer. I understand. However, I think you will see why I must. Sharon's thoughts whirled through the options as Sienna got up to go. Nick would be astounded. He would then like to meet Emma. He would like to be a part of her life. He always accepted responsibility. However, that meant a different chapter for him. One that didn't involve her in the manner she had hoped. In actuality, Sharon had always secretly hoped that she and Nick would eventually find a way to totally reconnect. However, after learning this, she felt as though her hope was eroding. Sharon went back into the booth with her hands over her face as Sienna left crimson lights. She struggled to control her breathing while her heart hammered in her chest. Sienna's words were still reverberating in her mind. She is Nick's daughter, and she is 10 years old. Didn't seem real. It felt like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. However, it was genuine. And Nick's entire world would be upended in a matter of hours. Sharon couldn't stop picturing his response as she paced her living room later that evening. No one knew Nick as well as she did. He would be startled and perhaps initially upset, but then his protective and affectionate side would take over. He would be curious about Emma's background. He would like to be a part of her life. Furthermore, Sharon had no idea where that would lead her. Their relationship was complex, with friendship, family, and love all intertwined. However, everything altered as a result. Her heart leaped when her phone buzzed. Nick had left a message. Hi Sharon. Tonight Sienna would like to meet. Claims it's significant. Are you familiar with this? She gazed at the television, her hands shaking. She desired to tell a falsehood. She wished to shield him from the impending storm. However, she was unable to. Not now. Not about this kind of thing. Slowly she texted back. Yes. Nick, it's huge. Simply put, be prepared. Nick swiftly responded. What's going on? Sharon remained silent. Even if they broke her heart, she wasn't allowed to share some truths. Instead, with tears stinging the corners of her eyes, she slumped back into the couch. Oh God, Nick. You have no idea what's coming, she muttered into the quiet. Sienna, meantime, was already waiting for Nick at society across town, sitting at a corner table with her heart racing. She considered their daughter, Emma, and how drastically this event would alter everything. She reflected on Sharon and the agony in her eyes after telling her the truth. She also thought about Nick, the man she used to care about, and to whom she was about to offer a part of her heart that he was unaware he possessed. Tears, horror, and unanswerable questions would all be present as the night came to a close. Nick's entire universe would sway. Sharon would experience a new kind of heartbreak. Additionally, Sienna's secret, 10 years of silence, would at last be revealed. Secrets usually find their way to the surface in Genoa City. However, this one would completely alter the situation. Nick Newman's daughter was 10 years old. And nothing would ever be the same again. Not his present, nor his imagined future, not his history with Sharon.